How's everyone doing? All right, we're going to start our first lecture today, and I'm going to quickly move through Pearl Harbor. I know a bunch of you have done Pearl Harbor already, but we kind of got cut off there, and I just want to wrap up Pearl Harbor, and then we'll move on to some of the other events of the Pacific Ocean. So, just real quickly, to refresh you on Pearl Harbor, I've got Pearl Harbor right here. December 7th, 1941 is going to be the day of the attack. And keep in mind that the Japanese had been preparing this for some time. Because of our trade sanctions with China and Manchuria, the Japanese had been planning to attack us and had actually been practicing on a similar harbor in Japan for this moment. Now, Pearl Harbor is actually going to happen on a Sunday. The Japanese had taken some time to see when we would be at our most vulnerable, and Sunday morning was their thought. And I'd have to agree with them. If I had to pick a time, probably Sunday morning for me too. The other thing is we did pick up some Japanese movement on radar. We made a couple mistakes there. Fortunately, Roosevelt, because of the Japanese movements in early December, will order our aircraft carriers to leave Pearl Harbor. Thank God they were not there. That would have been a disaster for us. But they are going to be moving out of Pearl Harbor before December 7th. And in fact, we're heading for the Philippines. We thought that if the Japanese were going to attack us, it probably would be the Philippines. So we're caught off guard there, and now we'll get into the actual event itself. So on December 7th, 1941, the Japanese are going to attack us with these planes right here. They're called Zeros. They're made by Mitsubishi. They are a much better plane than anything we have in the Pacific Ocean at this time. We are flying these P-40 Warhawks, which are not as fast and do not have the gun power that Zeros do. So the few planes that we do get in the air, we're going to be outclassed. Here is an actual picture of the attack at Pearl Harbor in 1941. You can see all our boats are, all lined up in little rows there. We're totally not expecting it. They come around 7:45 in the morning and then hit those ships while a lot of our guys are sleeping or doing morning duty. In fact, very famous situation is on the Oklahoma, one of the ships that goes down. They're raising the flag for the national anthem when the Japanese attack, and as they're getting strafed on deck, they actually finish the anthem, which is a pretty proud moment for that band. Now, because our aircraft carriers are gone, the bulk of what the Japanese are going to be looking for is our battleships. We're going to lose 5 battleships: the Arizona, the Oklahoma, the Utah, Arizona, California, Utah, West Virginia, and Oklahoma. Those are our 5. The ship that's going to take the largest loss of life is going to be the Arizona. The Arizona is going to be hit in really the perfect spot. If you haven't watched the Pearl Harbor scene from the movie Pearl Harbor yet, you should check that out. You probably can watch it for YouTube for free. I imagine it's on there somewhere. But you'll see, if you watch that scene, you'll see when the planes come in, they drop a bomb right in the ammo storage of the Arizona. That's going to cause a massive explosion, break the ship into 2. And when the ship comes back down into the water rushes into both ends, and a lot of these sailors are 3 or 4 decks underwater, and it's just an absolute disaster. This is this one over here. This one over here is the Oklahoma going down. Actually, it's the Arizona. I think I have a picture of the Oklahoma too. There's the Oklahoma. So there's the Oklahoma going down. And those are probably 2 of the most important ships that are going to go down in this initial Pearl Harbor attack. We're going to lose over 2,000 sailors in the situation, and we are going to get a couple airplanes into the air, but for the most part, it's almost 30 minutes of us getting our butt kicked. When it's all said and done, we're going to take a very heavy toll at Pearl Harbor, and there's really no doubt in any American's mind now that we're going to war with Japan as news starts to hit the coastline of the United States on what had happened. This is the memorial to the USS Arizona today. You can take a boat out there. It docks right here, and then you can get up into this memorial here. You can see that Pearl Harbor is not very shallow. The Arizona is sitting on the bottom of Pearl Harbor right there. And you can go into this little museum there, and you can see the Arizona below where the museum is. I've never been to Hawaii, but I do hope to get there someday. I will also say that there is, I think, close to 1,200 men entombed in this boat. And the reason why is we had so many people die in the Arizona. By the time we could get equipment out there to like raise the ship, get the bodies out, it was a pretty bad situation. You don't want to see what seawater does to a human body, not to mention the fish and all that stuff after about 4 weeks. So we decided to seal up the boat, and that is a tomb for the men that died on the Arizona today. So they're still sealed in there. It was a very controversial move at the time, but yeah, it's an actual tomb. So that is the attack at Pearl Harbor, and we're going to declare war on Japan pretty quickly after that. On December 11th, we are going to declare war on Japan. We still felt that it was not our job to deal with the Hitler situation. So, you know, when we declare war strictly on Japan. We had thought that Japan was our problem and the Europeans can deal with Hitler. However, Hitler's going to answer that for us really quickly. He's going to declare war on us shortly after, and there we go. You know, we're in. Pretty stupid move by Hitler. Not to say that we wouldn't have declared war on him eventually. I think we would have. But I would have waited as long as I could if I was him. But Hitler kind of felt like he was going to fight us one way or the other, so might as well do it right now with the Japanese. When Hitler declares war, we actually reverse our strategy and decide that it's going to be a European first strategy. So we're going to defeat Hitler and then worry about the Pacific. And the reason why is we thought Hitler was a bigger threat. So once we declare war, the American war machine starts pumping out, you know, boats and tanks and all this stuff, you know, getting our soldiers ready to go. But unfortunately for us, we still have some butt kicking to take. The Japanese are just getting started. Shortly after Pearl Harbor goes down, the Japanese will attack the British position at Singapore and will take Singapore from the British. This is the worst defeat in British history. They ended up surrendering, I think, close to 150,000 British soldiers when it's all said and done. And it certainly is not their proudest moment. The Japanese sneak up on them on land and take the city, and it's pretty bad. So the British lose Singapore, and at this point, the Japanese begin to focus on the Philippines. Now, the Philippines, we had thought, is where they were going to come to begin with. But, you know, the Pearl Harbor situation really caught us by surprise. Now, we do have soldiers in the Philippines. The problem is our Air Force is pretty small there. We weren't really ready for war. And then also with what happened at Pearl Harbor, we don't really have the Navy to be sending there to help these guys in the Philippines. In fact, our carriers that were heading that way are heading back to Hawaii because we can't risk the carriers in the Philippines at this point. So these poor guys in the Philippines, they're on their own. Now, in the Philippines, we do have an American commander named Douglas MacArthur, and I need you to highlight that in your notes there. Douglas MacArthur will be put in charge of all of our forces in the Pacific Ocean. And he's going to be the main guy there for us in the Pacific, so everything's going to run through MacArthur. MacArthur is, you know, he's an interesting character. He certainly loves himself some MacArthur. You know, he's got an ego problem, no doubt. That being said, he is a good general. You know, he's one of the better guys that we have. Won the Congressional Medal of Honor. He's one of the most decorative soldiers in World War I. So, you know, as much pomp and circumstance comes with MacArthur, he is a good soldier. Now, in this situation, MacArthur's going to make some mistakes on preparation. He just did not think that the Japanese were going to hit. And then secondly, MacArthur don't have much to work with. You know, the Japanese are bringing the noise here, and we've got a small little group of soldiers on the Philippines itself. We are going to fight along what's known as the Bataan Peninsula until eventually the Japanese corner our guys there and force our guys to surrender. It's difficult to say how many prisoners they take. Here it says 76,000, maybe 12,000 Americans. The rest are Filipino soldiers. But it could be much more than that. The Japanese ain't giving us any numbers on that. Now what they're going to do is they're going to march our guys almost 100 miles from the edge of Bataan to a prison base in the jungle named Camp O'Donnell, where they're going to move our guys out there. This is known as the Bataan Death March. Along this march, American soldiers are going to be starved and dehydrated to death. They're marching through jungle conditions of over 100 degrees and are given almost no water. You can't see it in this picture, but along the side here was a river that they walked our guys along. If you went for the river, they would shoot you. It was like an added little brutal punishment there. There's all this fresh water that you can drink, but we're not going to let you have it. And from time to time, they would take Americans, samurai sword the head, put the neck in the water, let the blood flow out, and then they'd be like, hey, you want to drink that? Here you go, American, drink that. So it's pretty brutal stuff along this march. Now, when they get to Camp O'Donnell, things do not get better. They're going to torture our American soldiers by putting them in hot boxes, metal boxes, where they put them inside, basically put them out in the sun, and cook them in these boxes. We found Americans cooked in these boxes. They'd also take little shoots of bamboo, put them under American fingernails, pop them off one at a time, all to try to figure out American troop movements and stuff like that, which none of these guys know. Mainly we would eat rice. They would put maggots in the rice and joke that that was our protein. When we get back to the Philippines and see what's happened to these guys, we're going to be very angry, boy. So yeah, it's just savage brutality here by the Japanese in the Philippines. Here's some of our soldiers on the Bataan Death March. Now, before I get to Wake Island, I do want to mention that Douglas MacArthur is going to evacuate the Philippines by direct order of Franklin Roosevelt. He did not want to leave his guys there, I will say. When ordered to leave initially, MacArthur was like, absolutely not, I'm not leaving my guys. Roosevelt basically tells him, like, listen, I'm not asking you, dude. All right, we got a sub, we're going to take you to Australia. After that, you can command the war from Australia, and, if we lost Australia, we're going to bring it back to Hawaii. So MacArthur is going to make it out. I got to imagine that's got to be difficult for any commander to leave your soldiers behind and die while you're leaving. And as he's getting on a plane, he yells out to them, he's like, I shall return. And, that's basically him saying, like, I will have vengeance for you. He will make good on that. It's going to take him a couple of years, but he will make good on it. Certainly doesn't help these poor guys in Bataan. Sometimes they're known as, the battling bastards of Bataan because that's all they got there, boy, is just them. So that's the Philippines. We'll hit back to that a little bit later on in the war. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about the Battle of Wake Island, which is at the bottom of your note sheet there. The Battle of Wake Island is an important battle for us because Wake Island is the beginning of what the Japanese called their island hopping campaign. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to take Wake Island, which is a little bit across the Pacific, closer to Japan. So if you think about like the middle of the Pacific Ocean, Wake Island's a little bit across the middle on the Japan side. We have a refueling station there. That's for our ships to stop off and gas up. After that, they want to take an island called Midway, which we'll talk about tomorrow. Midway sits almost in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And then once Midway's secured, Hawaii, California, full invasion of America. That was the game plan. Now, in late December of 41, they begin to close in on Wake, and much the same as the Philippines, like, we can't stop them at that point. Our Navy is just completely decimated. So, we basically send the guys at Wake a telegram like, hey, listen, best of luck, guys. We can't help you out there. Now, we're looking at probably close to 1,600 guys on Wake Island. The Japanese are bringing probably 20 to 30,000 plus aerial assaults and then bombardment by their Navy. So they're going to take Wake Island. At this point, you pretty much have to just come to the conclusion that most likely I'm not going to make it out of this situation. And now, how many Japanese can I take with me? I mean, that's pretty much what you're looking at the end here. So the Americans stick in on Wake, and then they wait for the Japanese to start hitting the beaches. And when the Japanese do start hitting the beaches, we're going to be looking at some savage fighting. As they're trying to get up onto Wake, we're in these trenched-in positions, hitting them with machine gun fire. And it becomes so intense that I've read some accounts from some Japanese pilots that are flying over the island, and they're pointing out that there's a ring of red around the island. And from the Japanese, trying to head up onto the surf, just the total amount of people that are being killed. After 2 days of combat, we are beginning to run out of ammo. It's not a video game. You don't have unlimited ammo. The Japanese aren't stupid. They're not sending their guys ashore with a whole bunch of ammo. So we're certainly checking the Japanese bodies for bullets and stuff like that, but we just don't have the necessary ammo to continue this fight. In the final moments of fighting, it turns to hand in the jungle. So you got a bayonet and you're jumping out of a tree, and things are getting real. The popular myth of Wake Island, and this was certainly perpetuated by a movie, I think in 42 or 43, called Wake Island, is that every American dies on Wake Island, just Thermopylae it out, That is actually not true. There are survivors from Wake Island. I think there's like 30-something survivors from Wake Island. They're sent to Japanese prison camps. Out of the 30, I think 14 or 15 are going to see the end of the war. So, is it almost everyone dies? Absolutely, it is. It's tragic. However, there are some survivors. The fact that everyone died at Wake is a myth. Now, before I move on from Wake, I do want to point out that this ain't Pearl Harbor here. Pearl Harbor is one of these situations where you just get your butt kicked for 30 minutes. It's hard to rally around that. Wake Island, although we lose, like we lost in the Philippines as well, is not Pearl Harbor. Our casualties are, probably close to 1,570, 1,580 Americans dead. But Japanese casualties, we're looking at 12 to 13,000 Japanese dead when this is all said and done. So, it's certainly not America going quietly into the good night. Japan's going to take a heavy toll here at Wake. And, this becomes kind of a rallying cry throughout the Pacific War and really throughout World War II is whatever horrific nightmare you find yourself in, someone will be like, hey, it ain't Wake, man. And you're like, yeah, it ain't Wake. So this is something that Americans can kind of get behind here a little bit. And certainly will start to change the American psyche. Speaking of changing the American psyche, Franklin Roosevelt has been really working hard to try to get us to hit Japan in a similar way to how they hit us. And he'd like to bomb Tokyo itself, if possible. However, that's super difficult, okay? We don't have much of the Navy. The Japanese fleet's out there somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. And, even if we could somehow get some boats close enough to Japan to maybe launch an attack on Japan, we don't have planes that can do it. Like, when we're looking at flying bombers to bomb Tokyo here, which is what Roosevelt wants, you can't fly bombers off aircraft carriers. The Russians won't let us use their bases, and China's completely overrun. So, we're in a situation here where there's not a whole lot we can do as far as, get at the Japanese. That being said, the United States military is going to come up with a very famous idea known as the Doolittle Raid, and I need you to highlight that in your notes. The Doolittle Raid involves taking B-25 bombers and I think I got a picture of them. There they go. B-25 bombers off the deck of the USS Hornet, an aircraft carrier. And we think we can maybe fit 16 of these bombers on the deck of that carrier. And if we can get them off the carrier close enough to Japan, we can bomb Tokyo. Now, no one's ever done this before, okay? Like I said before, no one's ever taken a bomber off an aircraft carrier. That's little tiny fighters. You know, bombers, you need mile-long runways to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to enlist the help of a very famous American named Jimmy Doolittle. Okay, he's right here in the center. And Jimmy Doolittle was an American fighter pilot, also a daredevil and a test pilot. So, you know, a new state-of-the-art plane, you put Jimmy Doolittle in there and he goes up there and rams it around and checks the different, you know, capabilities of the plane. So he's one of the better fighter pilots that we've ever had. However, at this point, Doolittle's retired. I think he's pushing his 50s. You know, I think he's late 40s at this point. So his days of being a fighter pilot are over. But he knows more about planes than anyone that we have. So we tell him, hey, listen, man, if you could put this together, you know, this would be great. So he gets working on it. That's why it's called the Doolittle raid, is because he's gonna make this happen. Now, on the carrier itself, he's going to turn these planes into flying gas cans. They rip off all the armor. They put black broomsticks where machine guns used to be. Basically to try to make these things light enough where they can get off the deck of that carrier with the bomb loads that they have. So, you know, just trying to get in these things and get them off the carrier is dangerous in itself. Now, to make the situation even worse, you know, like, we're not certain how close we can get to Japan. And when you take those planes off the ship, you know, even if we make it to Japan, you know, we don't catch the Japanese Air Force, we don't catch the Japanese Navy. Once we bomb Tokyo, you can't fly back to the carrier. First off, even if you can take a bomber off the deck of an aircraft carrier, you sure as heck can't land one on an aircraft carrier. Secondly, we can't risk the carrier. So that carrier's heading right back to Hawaii as soon as those planes leave. So once you bomb Tokyo, then you need to crash land your planes in China. And by the way, China's overrun by the Japanese, so we've alerted Chinese freedom fighters that you're coming. Hopefully they'll find you before the Japanese do. If they can, they'll smuggle you out through India and try to get you home. You know, if you're thinking, man, this sounds like a suicide mission, so are a lot of Americans. You know, I mean, it certainly is not set up for success, but it's the only chance we got. Now, things do not start out well. If you flip over your notes there, you'll see April 18th, 1942 there. And we're actually not at the 400 miles that we had hoped we would be at to launch our bombers effectively on Tokyo. We're about 600 miles, and we're spotted by a Japanese patrol boat. At this point, we got some pretty crazy math going on for all you math lovers in that, you know, we want to put some more gas on the plane because we're 200 miles out, so we got to put some more gas on, but you can't put too much gas on because then the plane won't get off the deck of the carrier. So we're trying to do math in like, you know, a minute here, and in the end, Doolittle he doesn't know. You know, they ask him, they're like, what do you think? And Doolittle's like, I don't know if we're going to have enough gas. I can't do the math quick enough here. And the Bull Halsey, the commander of the Hornet, says, you know, well, what do you want to do? You know, do we want to launch or call it? And Doolittle says, launch, you know, regardless of gas. And then also in a surprise move, Doolittle goes, I'm going. Now, Doolittle ain't supposed to go, okay? He's in his late 40s. He's an advisor, okay? He's supposed to sit on that ship, wave those boys off, and, you know, get ready for the next training mission. Doolittle, that's just against everything who he is as a human being, so he cannot do that, and he will get in a plane against orders, and he will fly this mission. Now, when the planes are taken off, and again, you know, it does certainly hurt me that I don't have all, you know, of my videos and everything at my disposal, but if you watch the movie called Pearl Harbor with Ben Affleck, we watched a couple scenes from that already, the end of the movie is the Doolittle raid. And, you know, they do a great job with the Doolittle raid, so please, you know, I know you got some time on your hands, you know, just watch that Doolittle raid scene there. I think you'll really like it. It's very well done. when the planes are leaving the ship, Doolittle's on the first plane because that is the shortest runway. And he takes off, and they just missed hitting the ocean there. And the plane rises up, and everyone on the deck's like, yes, we got it. And then all the other planes start leaving, and amazingly enough, all 16 planes will get off the deck of that ship. It is a miracle in itself that happened. We are also going to avoid the bulk of the Japanese Navy. We're not going to be picked up by the Japanese Air Force. We're going to fly over Tokyo, and we are going to unleash some bombs, boy. Now, it's only 16 bombers, so we're going to bomb some aircraft factories, also some tank factories. But the overall damage is going to be relatively limited in this situation. Because, like I said, we got 16 bombers. In fact, I think the Japanese have all their factories back and operational in about a month. So, it's not going to be that huge of a strike. But we do strike them. And after that, it's on to China. Now, unfortunately, we do not have enough gas to get to China. And I don't really know what your beliefs are in regards to God or luck or any of that kind of stuff. But maybe God and luck were involved in the situation that's going to happen here. And that as we're going across the China Sea, we run out of gas, and fortunately we have a favorable tailwind where the wind's basically just blowing our planes across the sea, and we're gliding into China. If the wind had been blowing the other way that day, I think those guys are dead. I mean, they're dying in the South China Sea. I'm giving you a different lesson today. But fortunately the wind's with us. We crash into China. Some of these guys are going to die on impact. Other guys are captured by the Japanese. Some of them are killed in POW camps. Some of them are released at the end of the war. But a couple of them will be actually found by the Chinese and will be smuggled out through India and will make it home. It's absolutely unbelievable that that's going to happen, but it does. Here's a picture. Oh, man. All right, let me see if I can fix this real quick. Oh, that's my first mess up. But there's Doolittle, and he will actually make it back. He is saved by the Chinese, shipped through India, and he will survive it, along with, I think, 45 to 50 guys survive when it's all said and done of the cruise. So, it's amazing that they're able to pull this off. Really cool thing, too, when Jimmy Doolittle turned 90, the Secretary of War called him up and said, hey, listen, happy birthday, and we have a little tribute for you. You mind stepping out on your front porch? So Jimmy Doolittle goes, okay. And he lives in California, so he puts the phone down, walks out on his front porch, and we take 16 B-25 bombers off the deck of a carrier off the coast of California and fly them low level over Jimmy Doolittle's house, which that is just awesome, man. I mean, I know I'm a history dork, but it's great American and great tribute to him. I've always liked that story. Now, like I said, Doolittle raid will not be a massive strike on Japan. It will not cause colossal damages, but it does two big things, and they're both psychological. On the Japanese end, they're sitting there thinking, like, how the heck did the Americans bomb Tokyo? Like, there has got to be a problem in our defense system. So the Japanese pull back a little bit, They're like, man, if they're bombing us at home, like, we're not ready to advance on, which gives us some time. Takes a little boot off the throat here for us. Also, this is a time when the American government and the American media are working very closely together, unlike today. And when Americans read about the Doolittle raid and hear about it on the radio, they're not going to hear, like, small, limited attack on Japan. They're going to hear, like, massive attack on Japan, Tokyo on fire, thousands are killed, massive damage. And Americans are sitting at home like, all right, we got them. And this starts to change the American viewpoint from a more defeatist mentality to a mentality of like, we're going to win this. We're going to turn this tide. And to kind of prove this point, I think there's no better stat than this. Prior to the Doolittle raid, we will not win a battle in the Pacific Ocean. After the Doolittle raid, we will not lose a battle in the Pacific Ocean. So certainly there's a big psychological shift with the Doolittle raid. Now, tomorrow, what we're going to do is we're going to head back to Europe. We're going to talk a little bit about what Hitler's been up to, the Battle of the North Sea, him turning on Russia, and we got some exciting stuff with Stalingrad, so some great stuff tomorrow. So thanks for tuning in, and hopefully this went well. Like I said, if you see any problems, you can't hear me, you can't see the PowerPoint, I am limited in what I can do, but I'm always looking to improve. So if there's something I can do, please share it on the comments. And then I've noticed that we've only got about 15 students on there right now. If you're watching this and seeing this, please text your friends in the class and tell them that we're going on this, all right? I think it is important for us to keep up with it as far as the AP test goes. And then also, we got to get something going here. If we're going to be home for, a month or 2 months or how long it's going to be, like, you got to educate yourself, So, please tell them to tune in. Thanks so much. Have a good day.